Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku was born with both all for one and one for all. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The waiting room of the Jaku General Hospital smelled of antiseptic, cheap lavender air freshener, and the nervous sweat of a dozen parents. It was a smell Inko Midoriya would come to associate with the beginning of the end. She sat on the edge of a plastic orange chair, her hands wringing the fabric of her skirt. Beside her, 4-year-old Izuku vibrated with an energy that seemed too large for his small body. He was clutching a plastic All Might action figure, the Silver Age variant, so tightly that the hero's plastic cape was digging into his palm. "Mom," Izuku whispered, his eyes wide and shimmering with green excitement. "Do you think I'll have super strength? Like All Might? Or maybe fire-breathing like Dad?" Inko smiled, though the expression felt tight on her face. "Whatever it is, Izuku, it will be wonderful. You're going to be a great hero. The greatest," Izuku corrected, thrusting the toy into the air. "I'm going to save everyone," with a smile. A nurse with a mutation that gave her a beak like a finch poked her head out of the hallway. "Midoriya? Dr. Garaki is ready for you now." Inko stood up, taking Izuku's hand. His palm was warm, abnormally so. For the last few weeks, Inko had noticed strange things. Light bulbs flickering when Izuku entered a room, the television static reacting to his moods. And a strange, voracious appetite that no amount of katsudon could seem to satisfy. He wasn't gaining weight, he was just consuming. They walked down the sterile hallway. Dr. Kyudai Garaki was a man Inko had only heard of by reputation, a specialist in quirk genetics who had recently taken a residency at this local ward. He was an odd-looking man, round and balding, with thick goggles that obscured his eyes and a mustache that bristled like a brush. "Ah, Mrs. Midoriya." "And little Izuku," Garaki said, his voice raspy but welcoming. He spun around in his chair, tapping a pen against a clipboard. Come in. Sit." The office was darker than the hallway, illuminated mostly by the glow of X-ray light boxes and computer monitors running complex cascading code. "We've run the tests," Garaki said, his tone shifting from welcoming to something clinically detached. "Blood work, gene mapping, the foot X-ray. Usually, this is a very simple conversation. A child has a quirk, or they don't." "But Izuku," Inko's heart hammered against her ribs. Is something wrong? Is he quirkless?" Garaki laughed, a dry, wheezing sound that made the hair on Inko's arms stand up. "Quirkless? Oh no, Mrs. Midoriya. Quite the opposite. In fact, in all my years of research, I don't believe I've ever seen a case quite like this." The doctor stood up and walked over to the light box. He clipped up an image of Izuku's foot, but he quickly waved it away. "The double-jointed toe theory is for simpletons. It's an indicator, not a rule. No, what I found was in his blood. In the quirk factors themselves." He turned to look at Izuku. The boy was swinging his legs, staring at a jar on the shelf containing a preserved lizard. "Izuku," Garaki said softly, "do you ever feel hungry? Even when you've just eaten?" Izuku blinked, looking away from the lizard. "Sometimes. But not in my tummy. In here." He tapped the center of his chest. "It feels like an itch I can't scratch." Garaki's grin widened, revealing teeth that looked slightly too yellow in the dim light. He looked back at Inko. "Mrs. Midoriya, your son possesses a compound mutation. Usually, when two quirk genes mix, like your telekinesis and your husband's fire breath, they blend into something new or one dominates the other. But Izuku's genes didn't blend. They stacked." "Stacked?" Inko asked, confused. "He has two distinct quirk factors active within his body at birth," Garaki lied smoothly. "It wasn't a lie about the count, but a lie about the origin. It creates a massive energy demand. That's the hunger." Inko let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. "But, is he healthy? Is it dangerous?" "Power is always dangerous, Mrs. Midoriya," Garaki said, leaning in close. "One factor appears to be a stockpiling mutation, an immense reservoir of bioenergy. The other," he paused, his goggles reflecting Izuku's small form. "The other is an emitter type. Likely some form of energy manipulation or absorption. It's hard to say until it fully manifests. Garaki returned to his desk and began scribbling furiously. He will be strong. Stronger than anyone in his class. Stronger than you can imagine. But you must be careful. With that much energy, emotional outbursts could be catastrophic. I see, Inko said, clutching her purse. Thank you, doctor. We'll be careful. Please, Garaki said, handing her a slip of paper. If anything unusual happens, call this number directly. Not the hospital. Me. I want to document his growth personally. As Inko ushered Izuku out of the office, Dr. Garaki stopped smiling. The moment the door clicked shut, the doctor's demeanor shifted from professional eccentricity to fanatical reverence. He turned to his computer and pulled up the true analysis of Izuku's blood. The screen was awash of red warnings and data spikes. It's not possible, Garaki whispered to the empty room. It shouldn't be possible. He traced the data lines on the screen. The first quirk factor was unmistakable. It was the genetic signature of his master, all for one. That was to be expected. Hisashi Midoriya was merely a mask, after all. But the second factor, it was a chaotic, swirling nebula of energy. It was ancient. It was a stockpile, yes, but inside the stockpile were ghosts. Traces of other quirks long since thought extinct. One for all, Garaki breathed, his hands trembling. Master, when you took the quirk from the fourth user, or perhaps a remnant from the sudden clash with the seventh, did you accidentally reabsorb the core? Did you carry the seed of your brother's power within you all this time, dormant, waiting for a vessel strong enough to hold it? Garaki slumped back in his chair, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the discovery. The quirk singularity theory. The idea that quirks would eventually mix and evolve until they became too powerful for a human body to control, was happening. Right now, Izuku Midoriya wasn't just a child. He was the singularity. Born with the power to take anything, and the infinite capacity to hold everything. Garaki picked up a secure, black phone from his bottom drawer. He dialed a number that didn't exist in any public directory. Master, Garaki said when the line clicked open. I have news. It's about the boy. You aren't going to believe what you've created. Part 2, The Incident. The sun was setting by the time Inko and Izuku left the hospital, casting long, bruised shadows of purple and orange across the streets of Muzurifu. The air was cooling, a welcome relief from the stuffy hospital waiting room. Izuku was skipping. He didn't just walk, he bounced. Did you hear him, Mom? 2 quirks. Izuku chirped, swinging Inko's hand. I'm like a superhero combo meal. Inko chuckled, though her mind was still reeling. 2 quirks. It sounded exhausting. Yes, Izuku. But remember what the doctor said. We have to be careful. I will. I'll be the carefulest hero ever. They decided to take a shortcut home, a path that led under a highway overpass. It was a route they took often, usually busy with commuters, but today the tunnel was eerily quiet. The sound of distant traffic muffled into a low drone, isolating them in the concrete throat of the underpass. Inko felt a shiver run down her spine. The instinct of a mother, primal and sharp, flared in her chest. She slowed down, pulling Izuku closer to her leg. Mom? Izuku asked, sensing the shift in her mood. From the shadows of a maintenance alcove, a figure emerged. He was gaunt, his clothes ragged and stained with grease. But it was his arms that drew the eye. From the elbows down, his skin was replaced by jagged, shifting formations of gray rock, tipped with spikes that dripped with something foul. Wallet, the man rasped. His eyes were bloodshot, darting frantically between Inko and the tunnel exits. Purse. Jewelry. Now, Inko stepped back, putting herself between the man and Izuku. Take it, she said, her voice trembling as she fumbled with the clasp of her handbag. Just take it and leave us alone. Too slow. The man shrieked. He was jittery, likely a villain on a drug-fueled high or desperate withdrawal. He lunged forward, not at Inko, but at the movement of her hands. Inko panicked. She threw her hand out, using her quirk, attraction of small objects, to try and pull his weaponized arm away. But her quirk was weak, meant for dropping toys or remote controls. She tugged at the man's heavy, rocky arm, and all she succeeded in doing was pulling him off balance, directly toward Izuku. "No!" Inko screamed. The villain snarled, his rocky fists raising to strike the child who was simply in the way. Time seemed to liquefy for Izuku Midoriya. He saw the fist coming. He saw the sharp stalactites of rock protruding from the man's knuckles. He saw the terror in his mother's eyes. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced his heart. But beneath the fear, something else woke up. It was the itch. The hunger. A voice, deep and ancient, roared in the back of his mind, "Take." Another voice, softer, like a chorus of bells, whispered, "Save." Izuku didn't think. He didn't plan. He just reacted. He thrust his small hands forward, intending to push the bad man away. His palms connected with the villain's rocky forearm. The moment skin touched rock, the world turned white. "No!" Izuku screamed. Red and black lightning erupted from Izuku's body, arcing wildly and scorching the concrete walls. At the same time, a golden light surged from his core, flooding his veins with power that felt like a star igniting. The villain's eyes went wide. He didn't hit Izuku. He couldn't move. He felt a sensation unlike pain, a profound, existential violation. It felt as if a hook had been sunk into the very center of his soul and was being ripped out through his arm. What are you?" the villain gurgled. The gray rock on the villain's arm began to crack and dissolve, turning into mist that flowed like liquid into Izuku's palms. The spikes receded. The hardness vanished. Izuku felt the influx. It wasn't just energy, it was information. Hardening. Rock. Weight. Durability. He felt the cork slide out of the man and into the empty void within his own chest. It slotted into place with a satisfying, terrifying click. The hunger was momentarily sated, but the other power, the stockpile, was overflowing. Izuku, overwhelmed by the sudden theft and the surge of adrenaline, lost control. "Get away from my MOM!" Izuku shoved. It wasn't a normal shove. The air pressure in the tunnel collapsed. A shockwave, concentrated and devastating, blasted from his 4-year-old hands. Boom! The villain was launched backward as if he had been hit by a cannon train. He flew 50 feet, skipping like a stone across the asphalt before slamming into the concrete support pillar on the other side of the tunnel. The pillar cracked. Spiderwebs of fissures raced up to the ceiling, dust raining down. The villain slid to the ground, unconscious. His arms were pink, soft, and completely human. Silence slammed back into the tunnel, heavier than before. Inko stood frozen, her hands covering her mouth. Her purse lay forgotten on the ground. Izuku stood in the center of the destruction. His gloves were burned off. His arms were trembling. Small arcs of green and red electricity danced off his skin, sizzling as they touched the pavement. He looked down at his hands. His skin rippled for a second, turning a jagged, rocky gray before settling back to normal flesh. He turned to his mother. His large green eyes were filled with tears. "Mom?" he whispered, his voice shaking. I think I broke him." Inko looked at the unconscious man, who was breathing, but barely, and then at the cracked pillar, and finally at her son. She saw the raw power rolling off him in waves. She saw the terror in his face. She didn't run. She didn't scream at him. Inko dropped to her knees and pulled him into her chest, ignoring the static shocks that stung her skin. "It's okay, Izuku," she sobbed, burying her face in his green hair. "It's okay. You saved me. It's okay." But as she held him, Inko stared at the villain's normal, fleshy arms over Izuku's shoulder. She knew that man had a quirk a moment ago. She had seen the rock. Now it was gone. And Izuku. Izuku felt full. Part 3: The Call. Hisashi Midoriya sat in a high-back leather chair in a penthouse overlooking the glittering skyline of Tokyo. A glass of vintage wine sat untouched on the mahogany desk. He wasn't wearing his mask, the life support system that would define his later years. At this point in history, All For One was wounded, yes, having suffered his first crushing defeat by All Might 3 years prior, but he was recovering. His face was scarred, the tissue mangled, but he still had eyes to see and a mouth to smile. The secure line on his desk buzzed. "Speak," Hisashi said. "It happened," Garaki's voice crackled, breathless with euphoria. "Sooner than we predicted. An altercation on the way home. Low-level thug. And the boy?" unharmed. The thug, however, he has been stripped, master. Completely depowered. And the structural damage to the tunnel suggests a strength enhancer of significant magnitude. Hisashi leaned back, closing his eyes. He could feel it, a faint tug in the distance. A resonance. He had children before. Failures. Disappointments who lacked the capacity to hold his quirk, or who inherited nothing at all. He had discarded them without a second thought. But Izuku, he took the quirk, Hisashi mused. Instinctively? Defensively, Garaki corrected. To protect the mother. And master the scans, the second quirk factor. It is undoubtedly one for all. The core you thought lost. It found a way to survive inside you, and pass to him. He is the unification of the brothers. Hisashi laughed. It started low in his chest and built into a roar that shook the glass of the windows. The irony. The beautiful, poetic irony. All Might was out there, searching for a successor, looking for someone to carry the torch of one for all to finally defeat the Demon Lord. And all the while, the quirk had already found its perfect vessel, the son of the Demon Lord himself. What are your orders? Garaki asked. Shall I bring him in? The Nomu project is promising, but Izuku, he is the endgame. We could mold him. Train him now. Hisashi opened his eyes. They glowed with a predatory red light. No, Hisashi said. Master, if we take him now, we break him, Hisashi reasoned, his voice smooth as silk. If I raise him in a lab, tell him he is a god, he will become soft. Arrogant. Or worse, he will become a mindless drone like the Nomu. I do not want a drone, doctor. I want an heir. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city he intended to rule forever. The quirk requires strong will. My quirk requires a hunger to take. One for all requires a desire to save. These forces are contradictory. They will tear his mind apart if he is not forged in fire. So, let him stay with Inko, Hisashi decided. Let him play hero. Let him go to school. Let him face the prejudice of this society. Let him struggle to control the power. Let him feel the fear of others when they realize what he is. Hisashi smiled, a twisted expression on his scarred face. Suffering breeds character, doctor. Let him try to be a hero with a villain's power. And when the world rejects him, when they look at him and see a monster, I will be there to welcome him home with open arms. Brilliant, master, Garaki wheezed. And the mother? She is useful. She keeps him grounded for now. But I must distance myself. If All Might catches wind of a child with this power profile, he will investigate. And if he finds me, I understand. I will arrange the cover story. Work overseas, Hisashi said. I will be the distant father, sending money and support but absent. Watching from the dark, Hisashi hung up the phone. He looked at a framed photo on his desk, a picture of him, Inko, and baby Izuku. He picked it up, his thumb brushing over the child's face. Happy birthday, Izuku, he whispered. Welcome to the family business. Part 4, The Burden of Silence. 2 weeks later, the incident in the tunnel was classified as a quirk awakening accident. The villain, a man named Kenji Tsurigami, a distant cousin of the police chief, ironically, was in a coma induced by the shock to his system. The police report stated that Izuku's quirk was a high-level telekinetic blast. The fact that Kenji no longer had a quirk factor was missed by the initial police scanners, or perhaps, suppressed by a doctor who knew better. The Midoriya household had become a quiet place. Izuku sat in his room. It was dark. He had asked Inko to take the All Might posters down, but she had refused, saying he shouldn't be ashamed. But Izuku couldn't look at them. All Might's smile felt like it was judging him. He looked at his hands. He was wearing thick woolen mittens, even though it was summer. Are you there? Izuku whispered to the empty room. We are here, a voice whispered back. It wasn't a sound, but a thought that wasn't his own. It felt faint, like a radio signal struggling through static. Hungry, another part of his mind growled. This wasn't a voice. It was a sensation. A black hole in his gut. Izuku squeezed his eyes shut. Since that day, he could feel quirks. When the mailman came to the door, Izuku felt the man's gliding quirk fluttering like a moth against his senses. When he went to the grocery store with Inko, It was a cacophony of flavors, some spicy, some sweet, some rotten. Every person he passed was a meal he had to stop himself from eating. He looked at the small potted cactus on his windowsill. He reached out with a mittened hand and concentrated. He focused on the feeling he had stolen from the bad man. The hardness. The rock. His skin turned gray. The wool of the mitten stretched as jagged spikes poked through the fabric. Izuku stared at his transformed hand in horror. He wasn't telekinetic. He wasn't super strong. He was a thief. The door creaked open. Inko stood there, holding a tray with tea and cookies. She looked tired. She had lost weight in the last 2 weeks. Izuku, honey? Time for a snack. Izuku quickly deactivated the rock skin, hiding his hands behind his back. I'm not hungry, Mom. Inko walked in and set the tray down. She sat on the bed beside him. She reached out to touch his forehead, checking for a fever, a habit she couldn't break. Izuku flinched away violently. Don't, Inko froze, her hand hovering in the air. Izuku, don't touch me, Izuku said, his voice trembling. He curled into a ball, knees to his chest. I might take it, Mom. If I touch you, I might take your floaty power. I don't want to steal you. Inko's heart shattered. She saw the terror in her 4-year-old son's eyes. He was afraid of himself. He was afraid of hurting her. She didn't listen. She grabbed him. No! Izuku cried, struggling. Mom, stop! It's dangerous. I don't care. Inko said fiercely, pulling him into a tight embrace, pinning his arms to his sides so he couldn't touch her skin directly. You are my son, Izuku. You are not a monster. You are my baby. Izuku went rigid. He could feel her quirk. It was right there. A gentle, warm hum of telekinesis. It would be so easy to pull on that thread. To drink it up. Take it, the demon whispered. Protect her, the ghost whispered. Izuku gritted his teeth, tears streaming down his face. He imagined a door in his mind. A big, heavy iron door. He shoved the hunger behind it. He shoved the voices behind it. He locked it tight. He sobbed into his mother's shoulder, his body shaking. I want to be a hero, he wailed. Can I still be a hero? Inko rocked him back and forth. She didn't apologize like she did in another timeline. She didn't say I'm sorry. She realized, in that moment, that pity would destroy him. Yes, Inko said firmly, crying with him. You can. But it's going to be hard, Izuku. It's going to be so hard. But we'll do it. I promise. Part 5. The playground 4 years later. Time moved differently when you were hiding a secret that could destroy society. 8-year-old Izuku Midoriya sat on the swings of the neighborhood park. He was alone. He was always alone these days. He wore black leather gloves. He wore long sleeves. He never played tag. Across the sandbox, Katsuki Bakugo was holding court. Bakugo had developed his explosion quirk early, and he was the undisputed king of the playground. He was loud, brash, and brilliant. Izuku admired him. He also feared him. Not because Bakugo would hurt him, though Bakugo tried to bully him, but because Bakugo's quirk felt spicy. It crackled like pop rocks in Izuku's sensory awareness. It was the most appetizing quirk Izuku had ever felt. Bakugo marched over, his 2 lackeys trailing behind him. Oi, Deku! Bakugo shouted, small explosions popping in his palms. Why are you sitting there like a gloomy ghost? Come fight me! Unless you're too scared your weird quirk will fizzle out again. Izuku looked up. He kept his hands gripping the chains of the swing. Go away, Kaken. Don't tell me what to do. Bakugo lunged, grabbing Izuku by the collar of his shirt. It was a mistake. The contact wasn't skin to skin, but it was close enough. Bakugo's explosions were active. The energy was flaring. Izuku's eyes widened. The lock he had visualized in his mind rattled. For a split second, the air around them grew heavy. The birds in the trees stopped singing. Bakugo froze. He felt it. A sudden, abyssal drop in his stomach. He looked into Izuku's green eyes and saw something that wasn't a child. He saw a predator. He felt his explosion quirk flicker, as if a candle had been placed in a wind tunnel. Deku? Bakugo stammered, his bravado vanishing. Izuku shoved Bakugo away, scrambling off the swing. He hyperventilated, clutching his chest. "I said go away!" Izuku shouted, but he didn't shout with his throat alone. A burst of raw power, one for all, rippled out of him. The sand in the sandbox blasted outward in a perfect ring. The swing set groaned and twisted metal. Bakugo fell onto his butt, staring up at Izuku with wide eyes. For the first time in his life, Katsuki Bakugo felt true fear. It wasn't the fear of being hit. It was the instinctual fear of a prey animal recognizing a dragon. The other kids ran away, screaming. Izuku stood there, panting. He looked at Bakugo, who was trembling on the ground. "I'm sorry," Izuku whispered. He turned and ran. He ran until his lungs burned. He ran until he was far away from the tempting spice of the explosion quirk. He ended up by the riverbank, under the bridge where he had taken his first quirk. He sat on the concrete slope, hugging his knees. "You handled that poorly," a voice said. Izuku didn't jump. He was used to them now. "Shut up," Izuku muttered. "You need better control," the voice continued. It was a man's voice. Sharp. Determined. "You leaked at least 4% of the stockpile just now. You could have killed him." "I didn't mean to," Izuku said to the air. "I just wanted him to let go." "The hunger is getting stronger," a woman's voice added. Gentle. Sad. "You're growing, Izuku. Your vessel is expanding. It wants to be filled." "I won't take anything," Izuku said stubbornly. "I'm not a villain." "We know, Ninth," the woman said. "We know. But your father, his nature is part of you." "Don't talk about him," Izuku snapped. "My dad is working in America. He breathes fire." "That's it." The voices went silent. They knew the truth, even if Izuku refused to acknowledge the nightmares he had where a man in a suit offered him the world. Izuku looked down at the river water. His reflection looked back. For a second, his eyes flashed red. He pulled a notebook out of his backpack. It was scorched on the edges. The title read, Hero Analysis for the Future No. 9. He opened it to a fresh page. He began to draw. He didn't draw All Might. He didn't draw himself. He drew a suit. A full-body containment suit. Something that would cover every inch of his skin. "If I can't stop the hunger," Izuku whispered, sketching a mask that looked frighteningly like a muzzle, "then I have to cage the beast." Part 6, The Letter. Dr. Garaki watched the footage from the drone camera hovering high above the riverbank. The feed was grainy, but clear enough to see the boy sketching. Garaki sat in the depths of Joko Hospital, surrounded by tubes of bubbling green liquid. Inside the tubes, the Noma floated brainless, engineered monsters. Subject Beta, Garaki muttered, looking at a Nomu with wings. Failed. Too stupid. He looked back at the screen showing Izuku. Subject Alpha, he grinned. Progressing beautifully. The repression is creating a pressure cooker effect. When he finally snaps, oh, the power he will unleash. Garaki picked up a pen and wrote a report. He slid it into an envelope addressed to Hisashi Midoriya, Tartarus Support Group, a shell company. He added a postscript. The boy has begun communicating with the vestiges of the second factor. He calls them his ghosts. He resists them, but they are guiding him. We must be careful, Master. If the vestiges teach him how to use one for all effectively before he embraces all for one, he may become a threat even to you. Garaki sealed the letter. He looked at another screen, one showing the UA High School entrance exam statistics for the coming years. 4 years until high school, Garaki mused. Let's see if he survives middle school without eating his classmates. Part 7, The Promise. 10 years after the diagnosis. Age 14. Izuku Midoriya walked the halls of Aldera Junior High like a leper. The hallway parted for him. No one shoved him. No one tripped him. They called him Deku, but not to his face. And the meaning had shifted. It didn't mean useless. In the hushed whispers of the schoolyard, it meant demon. He was tall for his age, broad-shouldered, a side effect of containing the massive bioenergy of One for All. He wore the school uniform, but he kept his black gloves on. He sat in the back of the class. The teacher droned on about career aptitude tests. But who am I kidding? The teacher laughed nervously, tossing the papers in the air. You all want to be heroes, right? The class cheered. Quirks flared. Yes, yes, you all have wonderful quirks, the teacher said. But remember, no quirk usage in school. He paused, his eyes flicking to the back of the room. Especially you, Midoriya. The class went silent. Heads turned. Izuku didn't look up from his desk. He was spinning a pen between his gloved fingers, and the teacher continued, sweating slightly, I see here that Bakugo has applied for UA. Bakugo jumped up on his desk. Hell yeah! I'm gonna be the only one from this trash heap to make it to the big leagues. I'll surpass All Might. Actually, the teacher interrupted, his voice shaking, Midoriya has also applied for UA. The silence that followed was heavy. It wasn't the laughter of cannon. It was a collective intake of breath. Bakugo slowly turned to face Izuku. His face wasn't angry, it was complicated. A mix of rivalry, fear, and a strange, twisted respect. You're really doing it, huh? Bakugo said quietly. You're gonna bring that into UA? Izuku stopped spinning his pen. He looked up. His eyes were tired, dark circles underneath them, but the green irises burned with a cold intensity. Someone has to keep you in check, Kaken, Izuku said softly. The class shuddered. The bell rang. Izuku packed his bag and walked out. He didn't walk home with friends. He walked the long way, avoiding people, sticking to the shadows. He reached the underpass, the same one from 10 years ago. It was his superstition. He walked through it every day to remind himself of his sin. To remind himself of the hunger. As he reached the center of the tunnel, the manhole cover rattled. Liquid green slime erupted from the sewer, a medium-sized skin suit. The sludge villain hissed, forming eyes and a mouth. You'll do nicely, kid. I just need to hide from him. The villain lunged. Izuku didn't scream. He didn't panic. He had spent 10 years living with a monster inside his own skin. A sewer slime was nothing. The villain wrapped around him, trying to force slime down his throat. Don't struggle. It'll only hurt for a minute. Izuku's eyes glowed red. The voices in his head, all 8 of them, snapped into attention. Right hook, the bald user Banjo shouted. No, blast him. The woman Nana commanded. Just eat him, the dark voice whispered. Izuku ignored them all. He took a breath, or tried to. The slime was suffocating him. He raised his gloved hand. He grabbed the liquid body of the villain. You picked. Izuku gagged, his voice distorted by the slime, the wrong skin suit. Izuku flexed his fingers. He activated the stockpile. Smash. He didn't punch. He just expanded his energy outward. An omnidirectional burst of wind pressure exploded from his body. The sludge villain didn't just detach, he was atomized. Droplets of green slime splattered against the walls, the ceiling, the floor, painting the tunnel in a gruesome mural. Izuku fell to his knees, coughing. He hadn't stolen the quirk. He had resisted the urge. He had just used brute force. Good, he wheezed. I didn't take it. I didn't. I am here. The manhole cover flew into the air. All Might landed in the tunnel entrance, striking a heroic pose. His smile was blinding. Never fear, for I am. All Might stopped. He saw the tunnel. He saw the green slime plastered over every surface, dripping like rain. He saw the boy on his knees, surrounded by cracking pavement, radiating an aura that felt terrifyingly familiar. All Might's smile faltered. He felt it. One for all. It was humming inside his own chest, reaching out, singing to the boy. Brother? All Might took a step forward. Young man, are you all right? Izuku looked up. He saw his idol. The man he had worshipped since birth. The man whose toy he still kept hidden under his bed. Tears welled in Izuku's eyes. All Might? Izuku whispered. I think I have your quirk. And then, the exhaustion of holding back the hunger took him. Izuku collapsed forward, fainting on the spot. All Might caught him before he hit the ground. The symbol of peace looked at the boy in his arms. He felt the dual nature of the child immediately. The warm, blazing sun of one for all, and the cold, devouring void of something else. All Might looked at the destruction in the tunnel. My God, Tashinori Yagi whispered. What are you? Part 1, The Rooftop Confessional. Consciousness returned to Izuku Midoriya not with a gentle flutter, but with the sudden, jarring sensation of gravity reasserting itself. He gasped, his lungs burning as they pulled in fresh air that didn't smell like sewage. He scrambled backward, his gloved hands scraping against rough concrete. He wasn't in the tunnel anymore. He was high up. The wind whipped at his dark school uniform, and the sounds of Muzidafu were distant, a low hum of traffic far below. Calm yourself, young man. The voice was booming, heroic, and familiar. Izuku froze. He looked up. Standing by the railing of the unknown rooftop, framed by the blinding afternoon sun, was All Might. The #1 hero. The symbol of peace. And he was staring at Izuku with an expression that wasn't his trademark smile. It was a look of intense, guarded scrutiny. All Might! Izuku squeaked, the fanboy in him warring with the terrified teenager harboring a dark secret. You saved me! The sludge villain is contained, All Might said, tapping a soda bottle shoved into his cargo pocket. The green slime swirled angrily inside. Thanks to you, in part. Though your method was explosive, Izuku flinched. He remembered the tunnel. The heat. The feeling of his stockpile detonating outward. And worse, he remembered the hunger. The way the sludge villain's fluid body had felt against his senses. Like a cool drink on a hot day, begging to be swallowed. I'm sorry, Izuku whispered, pulling his knees to his chest. I didn't mean to use my quirk. I know it's illegal. Please don't arrest me. All Might didn't laugh. He took a step closer, his shadow falling over Izuku. I am not the police, young man. But I must ask you a question. And I need you to be honest. The hero crouched down, his blue eyes piercing. Back there in the tunnel, All Might said, his voice dropping an octave. I felt something. A resonance. A hum in the air that I have not felt in a very long time. And it came from you. Izuku's heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. He knew. All Might knew. And All Might continued, his brow furrowing, when I caught you, I felt a second power. A warmth. Like a fire I thought had gone out. All Might leaned in. Who are you? And what exactly is your quirk? Izuku looked for an exit. There was none. He was trapped on a roof with the one man who could probably crush him with a flick of a finger. And more than that, he was trapped with the man he wanted desperately to be like. Lying felt impossible. Izuku started, his voice trembling. My name is Izuku Midoriya. And, the doctors call it a compound mutation. Compound? I was born with 2 quirk factors, Izuku confessed, the words rushing out. One is a stockpile. It gathers energy. Strength. Speed. It just keeps growing. All Might's eyes widened. Stockpile. It was the core component of One for All. And the other? All Might asked, his voice tight. Izuku looked down at his gloved hands. He squeezed them into fists. The other is a hunger. I can feel quirks, All Might. I can feel yours right now. It feels like sunlight. It feels delicious. He squeezed his eyes shut, waiting for the blow. Waiting for All Might to recognize the description of the boogeyman, the demon lord who had ruled Japan from the shadows. I can take them, Izuku whispered, the shame burning his throat. If I touch someone long enough, or if I want it bad enough, I can steal their quirk. I can give them away, too. But mostly I just want to take. The silence on the roof was deafening. All Might stood up slowly. A cloud passed over the sun, casting the roof in shadow. All for one, All Might breathed. The name was a curse. Izuku flinched. I don't use that name. My dad is overseas. He breathes fire. That's what Mom says. But I know what I am. I'm a monster. Izuku finally looked up, tears streaming down his face. I try to be good. I swear. I wear gloves. I avoid people. I want to be a hero, All Might. I want to save people like you do, but every time I use my power, I feel him. I feel the need to steal. He choked on a sob. Can someone like me, someone born to be a villain, ever be a hero? All Might looked at the boy. He saw the terror. He saw the gloves. He saw the desperate desire to be good warring with a biological imperative to be evil. and he felt one for all, his own quirk, vibrating in his chest. It wasn't angry. It was sad. It was reaching out to the boy. He has the brother, a voice whispered in All Might's head. It was faint, a sensation more than a sound. He has the first. All Might was torn. Logic dictated he should turn this boy over to the police, or perhaps to Tsukachi for containment. This was the son of his nemesis. A natural-born all-for-one. A ticking time bomb. But looking at Izuku, huddled and crying, All Might didn't see a demon. He saw a victim. Suddenly, a puff of steam exploded from All Might's body. Izuku yelped, shielding his eyes. When the steam cleared, the muscular titan was gone. In his place stood a skeletal, emaciated man with sunken eyes and sharp angles, coughing blood into his hand. What? Izuku screamed. Where did All Might go? You're an imposter. I am All Might, the skeletal man wheezed, wiping his mouth. He sat down heavily on the concrete, gesturing to his side. A grievous injury. 5 years ago, a villain blew out half my respiratory organs and my stomach. Izuku's eyes went wide. Toxic chainsaw? Heh. You know your trivia. All Might smiled grimly. But no. A villain much stronger. The one who gave you that hunger, young Midoriya. Izuku stopped breathing. My quirk, All Might said, lifting his shirt to reveal the horrific, spiderweb scar on his side, is not natural. It is a torch, passed down from generation to generation. I am the 8th holder, and the man who injured me was the man who created it. All for one. My father, Izuku whispered. He didn't ask, he stated it. The puzzle pieces he had ignored for years slammed into place. The missing dad? The bottomless bank account Inko had. The fire-breathing lie. Yes, All Might said softly. Biological, at least. All Might looked at the boy with a profound sadness. I should hate you. I should fear you. But my quirk, it tells me something different. You said you have a stockpile? Yes. That stockpile is likely the original core of One for All Might theorized, his mind racing. My master, Nana Shimura, told me that One for All was created when All for One forced a stockpiling quirk onto his quirkless younger brother. The two merged. If your father carried a trace of that initial fusion, and passed it to you, All Might reached out a bony hand and placed it on Izuku's shoulder. You are carrying the legacy of the greatest hero, and the greatest villain in history, inside one body. Izuku trembled under the touch. He could feel the embers of All Might's power, weak, fading, but still warm. So? Izuku asked, his voice barely audible. Can I be a hero? All Might looked at the sky. He thought of his limit. He thought of the prophecy Night Eye had warned him about. He thought of the world losing its symbol. Being a hero isn't about your quirk, Midoriya, All Might said firmly. It's about what you do with it. You have the gun of a murderer in your pocket, yes? But if you use it to protect the innocent, does the make of the gun matter? Izuku's lip quivered. It wasn't a resounding yes, but it was a path. However, All Might said, standing up and transforming back into his muscle form for a brief second to emphasize his point. The path for you will be harder than for anyone else. You will be fighting a war against your own instincts every single day. If you slip, if you give in to the hunger, you will become the greatest threat the world has ever seen. All Might deflated again. I cannot tell you yes lightly. But I can tell you this, today, you saved yourself from taking that villain's life. You showed restraint. That is the first step. All Might checked his pocket. He patted his cargo pants. His face went pale. The bottle, All Might whispered. Izuku looked around. Huh! The soda bottle. All Might patted his pockets frantically. I must have dropped it when I jumped. Or when I transformed. A distant explosion echoed from the city below. A plume of black smoke rose into the air, originating from the shopping district a few blocks away. Izuku and All Might ran to the railing. Oh no, Izuku gasped. That's near the tattoo parlor Kaken likes. All Might gripped the railing, blood trickling from his mouth. I have no time left. I pushed it too far catching you. Izuku looked at the smoke, then at his hands. The voices in his head woke up. Run, the bald man said. Someone is dying, the woman said. Feed, the hunger growled. Izuku didn't wait for permission. He didn't wait for the elevator. He vaulted over the railing of the 4-story building. Midoriya! All Might screamed. Izuku plummeted. He didn't panic. He reached inward, past the hunger, to the golden pool of energy. He grabbed a handful of it. Full cal 5%. Green lightning crackled around his body. He kicked off the wall of the building, shattering a window, and launched himself toward the smoke. Part 2, The Vault and the Vestiges. Mid-air, between the rooftop and the chaos of the burning street, time seemed to slow for Izuku. This was a common occurrence. When adrenaline spiked, his consciousness tended to drift inward, into the mental landscape Dr. Garaki had termed the Singularity Core. Izuku called it the Vault. It was a dark, industrial space inside his mind. Imagine the inside of a bank vault the size of a cathedral, made of black iron and green circuitry. In the center of the room sat a massive, roaring furnace of golden fire, the stockpile of One for All. But surrounding the furnace were cages. Most of the cages were empty. One contained a swirling gray mist, the hardening quirk he had taken from the thug when he was 4. Another contained a small, vibrating compass needle, a minor navigation quirk he had accidentally brushed off a lost tourist when he was 7. And standing around the fire were the ghosts. He is moving too fast, said a man with white hair and a kind face. This was Yoichi, the first user. He looked sickly, much like All Might's true form, but his eyes were sharp. He hasn't stabilized the output. He's got guts, I'll give him that, said a tall, muscular woman with a mole under her lip. Nana Shimura. She floated near the fire, her arms crossed. But guts don't stop you from splattering on the pavement first. The boy needs to focus on the landing, grunted a bald man with goggles, Daigoro Banjo. Hey! 9th. Tuck and roll. Izuku's astral form appeared in the vault. He was transparent, glowing green. I'm trying. Mental Izuku shouted at the ghosts. But the hunger is loud today. It smells the smoke. From the shadows of the vault, a dark, viscous substance oozed. It didn't have a shape, but it had a presence. It was the genetic imprint of All for One. Chaos, the shadow whispered, its voice sounding like Hisashi Midoriya. Panic. Fear. Delicious. There is a strong quirk down there, Izuku. Explosions. Nitroglycerin. Imagine the power. Shut up! Izuku yelled, swinging a mental fist at the shadow. It dispersed like smoke and reformed instantly. Ignore him, 9th, Nana commanded, stepping between Izuku and the shadow. Focus on the stockpile. You are the vessel. You control the tap. Don't let the water burst the pipe. I can't just punch the villain. Izuku panicked. It's the sludge guy. Physical attacks don't work. I need a tool. He looked at the cages. He looked at a small, unassuming cage in the corner. Inside floated a faint, pink aura. The attraction quirk? Yoichi asked. Your mother's? No, Izuku corrected, rushing to the cage. Not Mom's. I gave that back instantly. This is the copy I made of the tactile telekinesis from that pickpocket last year. I haven't used it because it gives me migraines. It's weak, Banjo warned. It can only pull things you're touching. That's all I need, Izuku said. He reached through the bars of the cage. The sensation was like plunging his hand into ice water. He grabbed the pink aura. He felt the logic of the quirk overwrite his own biology. Touch. Pull. Grip. Let's go, Izuku said. The vault dissolved. Part 3. The scene of the crime. Izuku hit the ground running. He landed on top of a police cruiser, denting the roof, and leaped off before the officers could yell at him. The scene was a nightmare. The alleyway was an inferno. The sludge villain had grown massive, fed by the fear and the debris he had consumed. He had taken a hostage. Explosions popped and cracked like gunfire. Don't come near me! The hostage screamed. Izuku skidded to a halt at the police barricade. The heat was intense. The heroes, Death Arms, Kamui Woods, Empty Lady, were standing around, helpless. There's no room to grow. Empty Lady complained. My wood will catch fire. Kamui shouted. I can't punch slime. Death Arms yelled. So we just watch? A civilian screamed from the crowd. Where is All Might? Izuku pushed through the crowd. Let me through! Stay back, kid! Death Arms shouted, reaching for him. Izuku ducked under the hero's arm. He saw the hostage. It was Bakugo. The sludge villain had enveloped Bakugo completely, leaving only his mouth and eyes exposed. The villain was trying to force himself down Bakugo's throat to steal his body. Bakugo was thrashing, letting off explosions that only fanned the flames around them. But it was Bakugo's eyes that broke Izuku. Usually, those red eyes were filled with arrogance, pride, and anger. Now they were wide, wet, and filled with a primal, terrified plea. Help me! The hunger in Izuku's gut roared. The explosion quirk. It's right there. Take it. If you take it, he won't be able to hurt anyone ever again. You can save him by stripping him. No! Izuku screamed aloud. He charged. You again! The sludge villain roared, recognizing the green hair. I'll kill you this time. The villain swung a massive tendril of sludge. It moved faster than a car. Izuku didn't dodge. He pumped the stockpile into his legs. 10%. He leaped, spinning in the air. The sludge tendril passed underneath him. Izuku landed directly on the shifting, fluid chest of the villain. His boots sank into the muck. It was disgusting. Get off! The villain shrieked. Izuku looked Bakugo in the eye. Kaken! Close your mouth, Deku? Bakugo gurgled. Izuku slammed both hands onto the slime covering Bakugo's face. Tactile telekinesis, activate. Izuku visualized the slime not as a liquid, but as a solid blanket. He gripped it with his mind, anchoring the telekinetic force into the molecules of the mud. Get off him! Izuku pulled. It wasn't a physical pull. It was a gravitational shear. The slime covering Bakugo's face ripped away with a wet, tearing sound, defying the fluid dynamics of the villain's body. The sludge villain screamed as part of his mass was forcibly separated from his main body. That hurts. What are you doing? Bakugo gasped, sucking in air. He coughed, looking at Izuku with disbelief. Why are you? Because you looked like you needed help. Izuku shouted, his voice cracking. Die! The sludge villain recovered. He formed a second head, raising a massive hammer of sludge above Izuku. I'll crush you both. Izuku looked up. He was holding Bakugo with one hand, his boots sinking deeper. He couldn't dodge. Use the wind, Nana's voice rang in his ear. You don't need to punch him. You need to displace the air pressure. Izuku let go of the telekinesis. He clenched his right fist. He felt the stockpile flood his arm. Red veins of energy traced up his skin, glowing through the fabric of his uniform. If I use 100%, I'll blow my arm off, Izuku thought. But if I use too little, we die. He dialed it. 20%. He didn't punch the villain. He punched the air directly above them. Detroit. The air pressure condensed in front of his knuckles, forming a cannonball of compressed wind. Smash! Boom! The shockwave didn't hit the villain directly, it hit the updraft of the fire. The result was a vacuum. The fire was snuffed out instantly. The sludge villain, made of low-density fluid, was atomized by the sudden change in pressure. He splattered in 1,000 directions, covering the entire street in green muck. The clouds above the city swirled. A light rain began to fall. Silence descended on the street. Izuku stood panting, his right arm bruised and throbbing, but not broken. He was covered in slime. Bakugo sat on the pavement, staring at him. You! Bakugo whispered. You stopped the rain. Izuku looked at his hand. He felt the hunger recede, satisfied by the expenditure of energy. He felt the vestiges cheering in the back of his mind. Then, the pros swarmed in. Are you insane? Death Arms grabbed Izuku by the shoulder. You're a middle schooler. You used a quirk in public. You could have gotten yourself killed. You interfered with official hero work. Kamui Woods added. On the other side, the heroes were praising Bakugo. Kid, that quirk is amazing. You held out for so long. You're a natural. Izuku tuned them out. He looked at the ground. He expected this. He was the vigilante. The reckless one. The monster. But then, a shadow fell over him. It wasn't a hero. It was Bakugo. The explosion boy stood up, shaking off the praise of the pros. He walked over to where Death Arms was berating Izuku. Hey, Bakugo growled. Death Arms blinked. Easy there, kid. Bakugo ignored the hero. He glared at Izuku. His eyes were searching. He was looking for the weakness, the Deku he had known for years. He didn't find it. You didn't use the demon power, Bakugo said quietly, so only Izuku could hear. Izuku looked up. What? You used the other one, Bakugo said. The strength. And that pulling thing. But you didn't try to eat him. Izuku wiped slime off his cheek. I'm trying not to, Kaken. Bakugo gritted his teeth. He looked furious, humiliated, and confused. I didn't ask for your help. I could have handled it. You were dying, Izuku said flatly. The old fear of Bakugo was gone, replaced by the adrenaline of the fight. Bakugo flinched. He turned around and started walking away, hands in his pockets. He stopped after a few steps. Don't think this changes anything, Bakugo yelled over his shoulder. I'm still gonna be number one. Don't look down on me, Deku! But as he walked away, Izuku noticed something. Bakugo wasn't walking with his usual swagger. His shoulders were hunched. He was afraid. Izuku had saved him, but he had also shattered Bakugo's worldview. The weakling was no longer weak. Part 4. The Truth in the Rain. The police took a statement, but they let Izuku go with a severe warning. Since no one had been seriously hurt, and the villain was captured scraped off the walls into plastic bags, they decided not to press charges for vigilantism. It helped that All Might, in his buff form, had suddenly appeared from around a corner, pretending he had been there the whole time, and vouched for the boy's bravery. Izuku walked home as the sun began to set. The adrenaline had worn off, leaving him exhausted. His bones ached. The voices in his head were quiet, likely sleeping after the exertion. He took the long way, through the residential district. I am here! Izuku jumped. All Might slid out from behind a telephone pole in a blur of motion, posing. Hey, All Might? Izuku gasped. Why are you? All Might coughed, instantly reverting to his skeletal form in a puff of blood. I got away from the reporters. I had to find you. The hero wiped his mouth and straightened up. He looked at Izuku with a new expression. It wasn't pity anymore. It was respect. Top heroes have stories about them from their school days, All Might said, quoting his own legend. Most of them have one thing in common. Their bodies moved before they could think. Izuku clutched the strap of his backpack. I just didn't want him to die. That was true heroism, All Might said. You fought your nature. You fought the situation. And you saved a life. All Might walked closer. The streetlights flickered as he passed, a reaction to the massive energy he still carried. Midoriya. Earlier, on the roof, you asked if you could be a hero. I gave you a vague answer. Izuku looked down. You said it would be hard. It will be, All Might agreed. But today, I saw something. I saw the power of one for all acting not as a burden, but as a shield. I believe that power was waiting for someone like you. Waiting? The quirk has been getting stronger, All Might explained. Too strong. I fear that if I passed it to a normal person, their limbs would explode. Their bodies couldn't handle the load. All Might pointed a bony finger at Izuku's chest. But you were born with a vessel designed to hold an infinite amount of power. Your father designed you to hold his quirk. But in doing so, he created the perfect container for mine. The irony washed over Izuku. He was built to be the ultimate villain, and because of that, he was the only one qualified to be the ultimate hero. I have a proposal, All Might said. A proposal? I am looking for a successor, All Might said. Not to give you my quirk, you already have the core of it inside you. But to train you. To teach you how to use it, to help you unlock the other cages in that vault of yours. Izuku's eyes widened. You want to train me? I want to help you control the demon, All Might corrected. I want to help you starve the hunger by feeding the hero. All Might extended his hand. It was scarred and rough. Izuku Midoriya. Will you accept my guidance? Will you become the next symbol of peace? Or perhaps, the symbol of hope? Izuku looked at the hand. He thought of the lonely years. The gloves. The fear in his mother's eyes. The whispers of monster. He grabbed All Might's hand. He didn't wear a glove on his right hand anymore. It had been burned off in the fight. Skin touched skin. Izuku felt the warmth of All Might. And for the first time in his life, the hunger didn't growl. It purred content. It felt like family. I will, Izuku sobbed, dropping to his knees. I will do my best. All Might smiled, a genuine, small smile. Good. Then prepare yourself, young Midoriya. The entrance exam for UA High is in 10 months. And we have a lot of work to do. Part 5. The doctor's diagnosis. Location unknown. Deep underground. Dr. Garaki stared at the monitor. He was replaying the news footage of the sludge villain incident. He zoomed in on the moment Izuku launched the wind smash. He wasn't looking at the wind. He was looking at the biometrics he was stealing from the boy's smartwatch, a device Inko had bought him, unaware it was bugged by the doctor years ago. Fascinating, Garaki wheezed. The screen showed a graph. 2 lines. One red AFO. One yellow FA. Usually, the red line spiked when Izuku was stressed. But this time, the yellow line had spiked. And when it did, the red line had harmonized. He didn't suppress the AFO factor, Garaki whispered, typing furiously. He used the energy output of One for All to feed the hunger of All for One without actually taking a quirk. Garaki leaned back in his chair, trembling with excitement. He's creating a closed loop. An internal perpetual motion machine. If he perfects this. The doctor picked up the black phone. Master? Yes, doctor. All for One's voice came through, smooth and calm from his cell in Tartarus. He had his ways of communicating, even from the deepest pit of hell. The boy, Garaki said. He has made contact with All Might. There was a pause on the line. Then, a low chuckle. Predicted, All for One said. All Might cannot resist the sob story. He will try to save my son. He will try to turn him into a hero. Is that not a problem? Not at all for One said. Let All Might train him. Let All Might polish the vessel. Let him teach Izuku how to maximize One for All. The voice on the phone grew darker, sharper. Because when the time is right, when Izuku finally breaks, I won't just get my son back. I will get my brother back, too. And they will both be stronger than I could have ever made them on my own. Garaki shuddered. You are playing a dangerous game, Master. High risk, infinite reward, Doctor. Keep watching him. And initiate the USJ protocol for the spring. I want to see what my son does when he is forced to choose between saving his friends and saving himself. The line clicked dead. Garaki looked back at the screen, at the freeze frame of Izuku's face as he punched the air. His eyes were glowing green, but in the center of the pupil, there was a tiny, unmistakable dot of ruby red. The singularity, Garaki whispered. It has begun. Part 1. The shadow in the kitchen. The morning sun filtered through the curtains of the Midoriya apartment, casting long, dusty beams across the dining table. It should have been a peaceful Saturday morning. The smell of miso soup and grilled fish hung in the air, the familiar comfort of home. But the silence was heavy. It was a physical weight, pressing down on the shoulders of Inko and Izuku Midoriya. Inko moved around the kitchen with mechanical precision, her eyes red-rimmed. She hadn't slept. She had spent the night staring at the ceiling, replaying the news footage of the sludge villain incident. She had seen the green lightning. She had seen her son, her sweet, gentle baby, obliterate a villain with a power that shouldn't belong to a middle schooler. Izuku sat at the table, staring at his rice. He was still wearing his gloves. He hadn't taken them off since he got home yesterday. He looked pale, the dark circles under his eyes stark against his freckled skin. Izuku, Inko said, her voice cracking slightly. She placed a cup of tea in front of him. Eat, honey. I'm not hungry, Izuku whispered. Inko flinched. The word hungry had a different meaning in this house. It wasn't about food. It never was. Please, Inko begged, sitting across from him. She reached out to touch his hand, then stopped, her fingers hovering inches from his black glove. She pulled her hand back, clutching her apron. Just a little. Izuku looked up. His green eyes were filled with a turbulent mix of guilt and fear. Mom, did you see the news? I did. I didn't mean to, Izuku said quickly. his voice rising in panic. I didn't take anything. I swear. I pushed. I pushed really hard. I know, baby. I know. Inko forced a smile, but it trembled. You saved that boy. You were a hero. A hero, Izuku repeated, testing the word. It tasted like ash. Can a vampire be a lifeguard, Mom? Can a wolf guard the sheep? Izuku, stop it! Inko snapped, the fear giving way to a fierce, protective anger. You are not a wolf. You are my son. Your father. She faltered at the mention of Hisashi. Whatever genes you have, your heart is yours. Before Izuku could respond, the doorbell rang. Both of them jumped. They weren't expecting visitors. Inko's eyes darted to the door. Was it the police? The government? Had they finally come to take him away to some black site lab? I'll get it, Inko said, standing up on shaky legs. She walked to the entryway, smoothing her apron. She checked the peephole. She gasped, Mrs. Midoriya? A deep, resonant voice came through the metal door. I apologize for the intrusion so early on a weekend. My name is Tashinori Yagi. I am an acquaintance of your son. Inko opened the door a crack. Standing there was a tall, incredibly thin man with messy blonde hair and clothes that hung off his skeletal frame like laundry on a scarecrow. He looked harmless, perhaps even sickly, but his blue eyes burned with an intensity that commanded respect. My son doesn't have acquaintances, Mr. Yagi, Inko said guardedly. He keeps to himself. I am aware, the man said. He bowed low. I am here regarding the incident yesterday. And, regarding the nature of his potential. Inko tried to slam the door. He didn't do anything wrong. Leave us alone. Wait. The man wedged a bony foot in the door. It was a rude move, uncharacteristic of a guest, but desperation colored his tone. Please, Mrs. Midoriya. I know about the compound mutation. I know about the hunger. Inko froze. She stared at him, her hand gripping the door handle until her knuckles turned white. Who are you? The man looked left and right, ensuring the hallway was empty. Then, for a brief second, he flexed. Steam poured off him. His jawline sharpened, his shoulders broadened, and the unmistakable grin of the symbol of peace flashed into existence before vanishing back into the skeletal form. Inko's hand flew to her mouth. Oh, please, Tashinori Yagi whispered, putting a finger to his lips. May I come in? Part 2, The Conversation of Ghosts. 10 minutes later, Tashinori Yagi sat on the Midoriya's sofa, a cup of tea untouched on the coffee table. The room felt too small for the magnitude of the secret being discussed. Izuku sat on the opposite chair, his posture rigid. He couldn't stop staring at All Might's true form. It was jarring, seeing the god of heroes reduced to a mortal man, but strangely, it made Izuku feel less alone. Even the greatest had their curses. I have verified the police reports, Tashinori began, his voice grave. They have listed your quirk as superpower. A generic emitter type. The fact that the sludge villain was obliterated rather than drained saved you from a much darker classification. I didn't drain him, Izuku said, staring at his gloved knees. But I wanted to. He tasted like stagnant water and oil. It was disgusting, but my body wanted it. Tashinori winced. He took a breath. Young Midoriya, yesterday I told you that you could be a hero. I stand by that. But we need to discuss the elephant in the room. We need to discuss your father. Inko stiffened. Hisashi is working in America. He sends checks. Mrs. Midoriya, Tashinori said gently. Has Hisashi ever visited? Have you ever seen him use his fire breathing? Inko paused. She searched her memories. He breathed a little fire when Izuku was born. To light a candle. But, no. He was always tired from work. He wore suits constantly. Tashinori turned to Izuku. You carry a quirk factor identical to a man who has terrorized this country for over a century. A man known as All for One. Izuku felt the blood drain from his face. A century? He is immortal, Tashinori explained. Or close to it. He steals quirks to prolong his life. He steals quirks to amass power. He is the emperor of the underground. And he is my nemesis. Toshinori lifted his shirt, revealing the scar again. He did this. He tried to kill me. I thought I had killed him, but if he is sending checks, if he is monitoring you, then he is alive. Izuku felt sick. The image of his father, a blurry face in his memories, twisted into something demonic. Why me? Izuku whispered. Why did he have me? Because of the quirk's singularity, Toshinori said. He believes that quirks will eventually become too strong for human bodies to contain. He has been trying to engineer a perfect vessel for decades. Someone with the hardware to hold infinite power without cracking. Toshinori leaned forward. You, Izuku. You are that vessel. You were bred to be his new body. Or perhaps, his greatest weapon. The room spun. Izuku gripped the armrests of the chair. He wasn't just a mistake. He was a product. A manufactured suit of skin and power. I'm a monster, Izuku choked out. You should lock me up. You should put me in Tartarus before I turn into him. No! Inko cried, launching herself from her seat to hug Izuku. You are not him. You are my son. You cried when you dropped your ice cream. You saved bugs from spiderwebs. You are good. Toshinori watched the mother and son. His expression softened. Your mother is right, Toshinori said. Biology is not destiny. And there is another factor. The other quirk inside you. Izuku looked up through his tears. The stockpile. One for all, Toshinori corrected. My quirk. The quirk of my master, and her master before her. It is the power to save. And for some reason, it chose to manifest in you alongside the power to take. Toshinori stood up. He looked larger now, even in his skinny form. Your father planted a seed of evil. But fate planted a seed of hope. The two are at war inside you. I am here to make sure the right side wins. He pointed a bony finger at Izuku. I cannot train you like a normal student. If we just build your muscles, you will become a powerful villain. We must train your mind. We must train your heart. I will teach you how to lock the demon away and how to wield the sword of one for all. Can you? Izuku asked, wiping his eyes. Can you really fix me? I cannot fix you, Toshinori said. You are not broken. You are complicated. But I can guide you. UA High School is the place where heroes are forged. That is your goal. But before that, Toshinori grinned. Meet me at Dagoba Municipal Beach Park tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. Wear clothes you don't mind getting dirty. Part 3. The Trash Heap and the Refrigerator. Dagoba Municipal Beach was less of a beach and more of a graveyard for the city's refuse. Mountains of tires, rusted appliances, and driftwood choked the sand, blocking the view of the ocean. The air smelled of salt and rot. It was 5 a.m. The sky was a bruised purple, the sun threatening to rise over the horizon. Izuku stood in a tracksuit, shivering slightly in the morning chill. He adjusted his gloves. All Might in skinny form stood atop a pile of garbage, looking like a gargoyle. This, All Might declared, gesturing to the trash, is your first step. Cleaning? Izuku asked. I'm strong, All Might. I can lift this stuff. I know you can, All Might said, jumping down. That is the problem. He walked over to a rusted refrigerator that was half buried in the sand. Most vessels, most people, have a limiter. The human brain restricts muscle usage to about 20% to prevent bones from snapping. My quirk, One for All, bypasses that. It requires a strong body to hold it. All Might patted the fridge. But you have the body of All for One. Your bones are denser. Your muscle fibers are adaptive. You don't have a limiter, young Midoriya. You are naturally operating at a higher capacity because your body is hungry for input. All Might's eyes narrowed. Show me. Lift this fridge. But do not use the stockpile. Do not use the glowing power. Use only your base physical strength. Izuku nodded. He walked up to the fridge. He didn't glow. No green lightning. He just squatted down, gripped the rusted bottom, and lifted. Screech. Metal tore. Izuku didn't just lift the fridge. His fingers punched through the steel casing like it was wet cardboard. He ripped the door off its hinges with a jerk of his arm, and the main body of the fridge flew upward, tumbling 10 feet into the air before crashing down into a pile of tires. Izuku stood there, holding the detached door. He looked horrified. I meant to just pick it up. Exactly, All Might said, writing something down in a notebook labeled Project Singularity. You lack fine motor control because your body is constantly anticipating resistance that isn't there. You are a tank trying to drive through a china shop. All Might walked over and took the fridge door from Izuku, setting it aside. Your training will not be about building muscle. You have enough raw power to crush a car. Your training will be about suppression. All Might tapped Izuku's forehead. You have two faucets in your soul, Izuku. One is the hunger AFO. One is the power OFA. Right now, both are dripping, and you don't know how to tighten the washers. How do I stop it? Izuku asked, looking at his hands. The hunger, it's always there. It's like a white noise. We are going to clean this beach, All Might said. But not by throwing things. You are going to move every piece of trash, without denting it. Izuku blinked. What? You must pick up an aluminum can without crushing it, All Might instructed. You must carry a microwave without leaving finger marks in the metal. You must drag a tire without ripping the rubber. All Might's face grew serious. If you cannot control your grip on a soda can, how can I trust you to hold the hand of a civilian? How can I trust you not to accidentally steal the quirk of a rescue victim in a moment of panic? Izuku looked at the mountains of trash. It wasn't a workout. It was a torture test of mindfulness. I'll do it, Izuku said, his eyes hardening. I'll carry it all. Part 4, The Mind Palace. Weeks passed. The beach began to clear, slowly. But the physical training was only half the battle. The real war was waged in the afternoons, in a secluded meeting room at the local community center All Might had rented under a fake name. Meditation? Izuku asked, sitting cross-legged on a yoga mat. It is a technique I learned. Well, I dabbled in it, All Might lied. He was actually using notes from Gran Torino and Night Eye. You need to visualize the power inside you. I call it the vault, Izuku said, closing his eyes. Describe it to me. It's dark, Izuku murmured, slipping into the trance. Black metal walls. Green lights. In the center there's a fire. That's one for all. And the other? All Might asked, his voice tense. Shadows, Izuku said, his brow furrowing. Sticky black tar. It seeps through the cracks in the floor. It whispers. What does it say? It tells me you're weak, Izuku said honestly. It tells me to take your quirk right now. It says you're a dying star and I should harvest the light before it goes out. All Might shivered. To hear his nemesis's thoughts coming from this sweet boy's mouth was chilling. Ignore the tar, All Might commanded. Focus on the fire. You need to build a containment unit. A firewall. Inside the vault, Izuku stood before the roaring golden fire. The vestiges were there. The kid's struggling, Banjo the fifth user said, leaning against the cage. The AFO influence is trying to eat the OFA core. It thinks the stockpile is just another stolen quirk to be assimilated. It is not, Yoichi the first said softly. We are resisting. But the boy must be the arbiter. Mental Izuku looked at the black tar oozing toward the fire. He concentrated. He imagined a wall. Not just a wall, a sophisticated blast door. Lock, Izuku thought. He visualized complex locking mechanisms. Heavy bolts. Iris scanners. Passwords. He built a cage around the hunger, not the power. He imagined shoving the black tar into a box made of lead and light. Get in there, Izuku ordered the shadow of his father. The shadow laughed, a low, rumbling sound. I can wait, Izuku. You can't hold your breath forever. But the shadow receded. The door slammed shut. The vault felt cleaner. Lighter. Izuku opened his eyes in the real world. He gasped for air, sweat drenching his shirt. I did it, Izuku panted. I locked it. All Might let out a breath. Good. Now, try to touch my hand. All Might extended his arm. Izuku hesitated. He took off his glove. His hand trembled. Do it, All Might encouraged. Trust your lock. Izuku reached out. His fingertips brushed All Might's wrist. Usually, this was the moment the suction would start. The moment Izuku would feel the pull. Nothing happened. He felt skin. He felt bone. He felt warmth. But he didn't feel the quirk sliding out. Izuku broke into a wide, beaming smile, the first genuine smile All Might had seen on him. "I'm not eating you!" Izuku cheered. "You are not eating me!" All Might laughed, giving him a thumbs up. "Excellent! Now, put the glove back on. We don't want to get cocky." Part 5, The Ghost of Aldera. School continued, a gray blur against the technicolor intensity of his training. Izuku had changed. His uniform fit tighter around the shoulders. He walked with a fluid grace, careful not to bump into desks or door frames. He held his pencil with a delicate, deliberate grip. Bakugo noticed. Lunchtime. Izuku was eating alone on the roof, practicing lifting grapes with his telekinesis, the weak copy he had without squashing them. Izuku dropped the grape. He looked up. Bakugo stood there, hands in his pockets. He looked angry, but that was his default state. Underneath, there was confusion. "Kaken," Izuku said, guarding his lunch, "you've been disappearing," Bakugo accused. "Every morning. Every afternoon. You smell like garbage and seawater." "Training," Izuku said simply. "With who?" "Just preparing for the exam." Bakugo scowled. He walked over and kicked the fence next to Izuku. "Don't think that one lucky punch makes you a hero, Deku. You're still a glitch. A bug in the system." "I know," Izuku said. Bakugo paused. He expected Izuku to argue, or to cower. The calm acceptance threw him off. "Why didn't you take it?" Bakugo asked suddenly. "Take what?" "My quirk," Bakugo spat. "Back with the slime guy. Your hand was on my face. You were using that pull. You could have taken explosion. You always stared at it when we were kids like you wanted to eat it." Izuku looked at Bakugo. He saw the insecurity. Bakugo defined himself by his quirk. If he lost it, he was nothing. "I was hungry," Izuku admitted. "It smelled really good, Kaken. Like burnt sugar and gunpowder." Bakugo took a step back, repulsed. But Izuku continued, his eyes locking onto Bakugo's. "It's yours. It belongs to you. And stealing is what villains do." Izuku stood up. He was almost as tall as Bakugo now. "I'm going to get into you, Kaken. And I'm going to do it without stealing a single thing. I'm going to use what I have to save people. Even you." Bakugo stared at him. The air between them crackled. "I don't need saving," Bakugo snarled, turning away. "Stay out of my way, or I'll blast you to hell." But as he walked away, Bakugo rubbed his face where Izuku's hand had been months ago. He knew deep down that he was alive because the demon had decided to be merciful, and that terrified him more than anything. Part 6, The Singularity Approach. 10 months flew by. Winter turned to spring. The cherry blossoms began to bloom. The day before the UA entrance exam, Dagobah Beach was unrecognizable. The mountains of trash were gone. In their place was pristine white sand, glittering under the sunrise. The ocean waves lapped gently at the shore, unobstructed for the first time in years. Izuku stood atop the seawall, screaming at the ocean. "I did it!" He wasn't wearing a shirt. His body was honed, scarred faintly from the training, rippling with dense, compact muscle. He didn't look like a bodybuilder. He looked like a loaded spring. All Might stood beside him, holding 2 cans of hot coffee. He looked at the boy with immense pride. "You did more than clean the beach," All Might said, handing him a can. "You mastered the vessel." Izuku took the can. He held it gently. The aluminum didn't dent. "I feel quiet," Izuku said. "The voices are still there. The hunger is still there. But they're in the other room." "That is control," All Might said. The hero looked at the sunrise. It was time for the final step. In the original timeline, this was where he would offer a strand of hair. "Izuku," All Might said seriously. "There is one last thing." All Might plucked a long, golden hair from his bangs. "I told you that one for all is a torch passed down. You have the core of it, the flame itself, buried under the ash of your father's quirk. But the connection is incomplete." All Might held out the hair. "This contains my DNA. My biometric signature. If you consume this, it will act as a key. It will synchronize the one for all inside you with the one for all that I have cultivated for 40 years. It will unlock the full stockpile immediately." Izuku looked at the hair. He looked at All Might. The hunger woke up. It roared. Take it. Pure power. The golden age. Eat it and become a god. Izuku's hand trembled. He reached out. Then he stopped. He balled his hand into a fist and lowered it. No, Izuku said. All Might blinked. No, if I take this, Izuku said, his voice shaking but firm, I'm taking a shortcut. And I'm taking a piece of you. I don't want to take any more, All Might. It is a gift, not a theft. All Might argued. Without this, you will be accessing the power through a filter. It will be harder. You won't have access to 100% of my power level. I don't need your power level, Izuku said. He tapped his chest. I have the first user. I have the stockpile. It's growing on its own, isn't it? It is, All Might admitted. But slowly. Then I'll grow it myself, Izuku declared. I won't eat your hair. I won't eat your power. If I'm going to be the symbol of peace, I have to be able to stand on my own 2 feet. I have to trust that what I have is enough. Izuku looked at All Might with eyes that burned with a fierce independence. Keep your hair, All Might. I'll take the exam with what I've got. The demon and the ghost. That's my team. All Might stared at him. Then, he threw his head back and laughed. It was a loud, booming laugh that startled the seagulls. Stubborn. All Might wiped a tear from his eye. You are so incredibly stubborn. You reject the easy path of power, to prove a point to your own inner demons. All Might pocketed the hair. He placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. You are right. You don't need my DNA. You have the spirit of the 9th holder already. You are not just a vessel, Izuku. You are the fire. All Might looked at his watch. Go home. Shower. Rest. Tomorrow, you walk into UA. And you show them that a monster can save the world. Part 7. The exam begins. The gates of UA High were massive. Izuku stood before them, feeling tiny. Hundreds of students were streaming in. He saw Bakugo walking ahead, radiating intensity. He saw a girl with brown hair looking nervous. Izuku took a deep breath. He checked his mental locks. Vault, secure. Hunger caged. Stockpile, ready. He took a step forward. He tripped. It was a classic Izuku moment. His foot caught on the edge of a tile. He braced for impact, expecting to face plant. Suddenly, he stopped in midair. He was floating. Are you okay? Izuku looked up. The brown-haired girl Uraraka had tapped him. Her fingers were pressed together. It's my quirk, she smiled. Sorry for using it on you without asking. But it's bad luck to fall on the first day, right? Izuku floated there. He felt her quirk. 0 gravity. It felt light. Bubbly. Like champagne. The hunger scratched at the door of the vault. Float. Take it. Fly. Izuku squeezed his eyes shut. He forced himself to rotate in the air and land on his feet as she released him. Thank you, Izuku said, keeping his distance. That's a really nice quirk. Thanks. I'm Ochako Uraraka. Izuku Midoriya. Good luck, Midoriya. She waved and ran off. Izuku stood there, his heart pounding. He hadn't taken it. He hadn't even accidentally drained her energy. He looked at his hands. I can do this, he whispered. He walked into the orientation hall. President Mike was shouting. The written exam was easy. Izuku had been studying quirk theory for years to understand his own condition. Then came the practical. Izuku stood in front of the massive doors of Battle Center B. He was wearing a simple green tracksuit, cheap, disposable. The doors opened. Start! President Mike yelled. There are no countdowns in real battles. The other students hesitated. Izuku didn't. He ignited. He didn't use the red lightning of AFO. He didn't use the green lightning of full cloud yet. He just used the raw, stockpiled physical speed residing in his muscles. He blurred. Whoosh. He was the first one in the city. A one-pointer robot rolled out. Target acquired. Izuku didn't stop. He ran straight at it. Sorry, Izuku muttered. He wound up a punch. He carefully regulated the output. No quirks. Just strength. His fist connected with the robot's chassis. Crunch. The robot didn't just break, it folded. The metal crumpled like paper. Izuku ran through the robot, leaving a hole in its center. He didn't slow down. Two-pointer. Kick. Head flies off. 3-pointer. Shoulder check. Robot embedded in a wall. Izuku was a whirlwind of destruction. He wasn't using fancy moves. He was efficiently, brutally dismantling the machines. In the observation room, the teachers watched the screens. Who is that? Midnight asked, licking her lips. He's savage. No quirk usage detected, Power Loader said, checking the sensors. That's just pure physical force. Is he a strength enhancer? Not exactly, Niza said, his beady eyes narrowing as he sipped his tea. Look at the way the other students react to him. On the screen, other examinees were steering clear of Izuku. Not because he was stealing their targets, but because of the pressure he emitted. Even without active AFO usage, the aura of the Demon Lord leaked out when he exerted himself. It was a subliminal signal, predator. He moves like a villain, Aizawa mumbled from the back of the room, his eyes dry and irritated. Efficient. No wasted movement. No showing off. He's there to destroy. He has 50 points already, Cementos noted. He's definitely passing. Then, the ground shook. The 0-pointer. It rose above the buildings, a titan of metal. It blocked out the sun. The other students screamed and ran. Run! It's huge! Izuku stopped. He looked up at the robot. It was magnificent. And terrifying. He turned to run with the others. It was the logical choice. It was worth 0 points. Ouch! A voice from the rubble. Izuku froze. He looked back. Uraraka was trapped under a pile of concrete. The robot was looming over her, its tracks crushing the pavement. Izuku's mind went blank. The vault opened. Save! The vestiges screamed. Destroy! The hunger roared. For the first time, the two forces agreed. Izuku crouched. Red and green lightning exploded from his body, shattering the windows of the nearby buildings. One for all, 100%. It was too much. His body could handle maybe 20% safely. But he didn't care. He launched himself into the air. The concrete beneath him vaporized. He flew. He soared higher than the buildings, higher than the robot's head. He clenched his fist. He felt the bones in his arm groan under the pressure of the energy. Smash! He punched the 0-pointer in the face. The impact was deafening. The robot's head didn't just dent, it was obliterated. The shockwave traveled down the body, blowing out the tracks and toppling the giant backward. Izuku hovered in the air for a second, surrounded by debris. Then he began to fall. And as the adrenaline faded, the leak happened. Because he had opened the floodgates to 100%, the AFO factor spiked in sympathy. An invisible pulse of energy rippled out from his falling body. Below, the fleeing students suddenly felt their knees buckle. I feel weak. My quirk, it feels slippery. I'm dizzy. Izuku's giving/taking aura had flared. He was inadvertently sapping the stamina of everyone in a 100-meter radius to fuel his own regeneration. Izuku realized it as he fell. No! Lock it! Lock it now! He slammed the mental door shut, cutting off the drain. He was falling to his death. His arm was broken purple and twisted. His legs were jelly. Slap him! Uraraka thought, fighting through the sudden drain Izuku had caused. She slapped Izuku's cheek as he fell past her levitated rubble. He stopped inches from the ground. He collapsed. The exam ended. Izuku lay on the pavement, staring at the sky. His arm was screaming in pain. I did it, he wheezed. I saved her. Recovery girl walked onto the scene. She took one look at Izuku's arm and tooted. Then she paused. She looked at the other students who were sitting on the ground, looking pale and drained. My goodness, Recovery girl whispered. He exhausted them just by being near them. In the observation room, Aizawa stood up. That kid, Aizawa said, his voice cold. He's dangerous. He's powerful. All Might defended, though he was sweating. He's both, Niza concluded. Izuku Midoriya. Accepted. But, we will need to keep a very close eye on him. Deep in the rubble of the 0-pointer, a small, black microchip that had been embedded in Izuku's shoe finally short-circuited from the EMP blast of his power, but not before sending one last packet of data to a server in Tartarus. Status, awakened. Part 1, The Jury of Pros. The faculty meeting room at UA High School was soundproofed, windowless, and chilled to a temperature that kept the occupants alert. A massive holographic table dominated the center of the room, currently displaying a paused frame of video footage. It was the zero-pointer, decapitated, falling backward, and suspended in the air, surrounded by a halo of red and green lightning, was a 15-year-old boy. "It's excessive," Midnight murmured, tapping a manicured nail against her lips. "I love passion, but this? This is violence. It's raw power," Cementos countered, his rocky voice rumbling. "The robot is designed to be destroyed." He destroyed it. He saved the girl. "That is the essence of the exam." He broke his own arm, Vlad King pointed out, crossing his thick arms. "And his legs. He has no regard for his own safety." And a dry, tired voice cut through the debate. He drained the other examinees. Shoyuta Aizawa sat in the corner, wrapped in his yellow sleeping bag, clutching a jelly pouch. He looked like a caterpillar that had given up on becoming a butterfly. He hit a button on his tablet, and the hologram changed. It showed the aftermath. The examinees within a 100-meter radius of Izuku's landing zone were stumbling, vomiting, or passing out. Recovery Girl's report, Aizawa read, his eyes narrowing. Symptoms consistent with sudden hypoglycemia and stamina depletion. The boy didn't just output energy. He created a vacuum. He fed on the ambient bioenergy of his peers to cushion his fall or regenerate his stamina. The room went silent. Energy absorption quirks were rare. Area of effect absorption quirks were dangerous. An absorption quirk paired with a physical enhancer that could decapitate a skyscraper-sized robot? That was a national security threat. He didn't do it on purpose, a thin, skeletal man coughed from the other side of the table. All Might sat there, wearing a suit that was too big for him. "I have spoken with young Midoriya. He has a unique constitution. He is learning to control it." "Learning?" Aizawa scoffed. "We are a school, All Might, not a containment facility for nuclear waste. If he loses control in a hallway, he could put a whole class in the hospital. Which is why he belongs here," the principal squeaked. Nizu, the chimera with the scar over his eye, climbed up onto the table. He walked through the hologram of Izuku's face. "Izuku Midoriya," Nizu began, twitching his whiskers. "Son of Inko Midoriya, a telekinetic. Father, absent. Records sealed or non-existent beyond basic tax filings. The boy scores in the top 0.1% for intelligence. His psychological profile shows high empathy but severe repression." Nizu turned to Aizawa. "If we reject him, Aizawa, where does he go? Does he go to a regular high school? Does he get picked up by the HPSC and turned into a weapon? Or does he fall into the hands of villains who would love a boy with a quirk that can eat?" Aizawa ground his teeth. He knew the logic. UA was the safest place. "He placed first," Nizu continued cheerfully. 60 rescue points. 70 villain points. A record. "We cannot deny entry to the top scorer based on potential danger. That is discrimination." Nizu stamped a paw on the digital file. "He is admitted to Class 1A. "But Aizawa." Nizu's black eyes glittered. "You have my permission to expel him the moment you believe he is a lost cause. You are the gatekeeper. If the monster tries to break out of the cage, you shut the door." Aizawa stared at the image of the green-haired boy. He saw the desperation in the kid's eyes. He saw a problem. "Fine," Aizawa grunted, sinking deeper into his sleeping bag. "But don't expect me to be nice to him." Part 2. The Weight of the Uniform. April arrived with a shower of cherry blossoms and a sky of piercing blue. The Midoriya household was a flurry of nervous energy. Inko was crying again, straightening the collar of Izuku's gray blazer. "You look so handsome," she sobbed, dabbing her eyes. "My baby is going to UA." Izuku stood stiffly. The uniform felt heavy. It wasn't the fabric, it was the symbol. The UA on the lapel was a target. "Thanks, Mom," Izuku said softly. He pulled on his black gloves. He had bought new ones, custom ordered online, lined with lead mesh. He didn't know if lead actually stopped the conduction of quirks, but it made him feel safer. "Do you have your lunch?" "Your suppressants?" "I have everything," Izuku lied. There were no suppressants for what he had. There were only the mental locks he and All Might had built. He walked to the door. He paused, looking back at the apartment. It felt like a sanctuary he was leaving behind. I'm off, he said. The walk to the station was a gauntlet. Izuku's senses were dialed up to 11. The hunger was awake. It had tasted 100% of one for all during the exam, and like a shark that had tasted blood, it was circling the waters of his mind, waiting for another drop. Feed me, the shadow of his father whispered from the depths of the vault. Look at that man. He has a flight quirk. Don't you want to fly? Look at that woman. She can turn water into ice. Wouldn't that be cool? Quiet, Izuku muttered, gripping his backpack straps. He boarded the train. It was crowded. Bodies pressed against bodies. Panic flared in Izuku's chest. He pulled his arms in tight, crossing them over his chest. Don't touch anyone. Don't let the aura leak. A businessman bumped into him as the train lurched. Contact. For a microsecond, Izuku felt the man's quirk, Excel, the ability to process spreadsheets instantly. It was boring, dry, and tasted like paper. Izuku shoved the sensation away. He didn't take it. He just felt it. He exhaled, sweat trickling down his neck. When he finally reached the gates of UA, he felt like he had run a marathon. The UA barrier was a massive steel wall. To most, it was security. To Izuku, it was the perimeter of his new prison. He walked through the main archway. Deku. Izuku stopped. He didn't need to turn around to know who it was. The smell of nitroglycerin, sweet and sharp, washed over him. Bakugo walked past him, his hands in his pockets. He didn't yell. He didn't explode. He just stopped next to Izuku, staring ahead at the main building. Don't screw this up, Bakugo said, his voice low and dangerous. If you eat someone, I'll be the one to put you down. Got it? It wasn't a threat of bullying. It was a promise of containment. In a twisted way, Bakugo was offering to be his failsafe. I won't, Izuku whispered. TCH. Bakugo walked away, his shoulders tense. Izuku watched him go. He realized with a pang of sadness that Bakugo was the only person his age who knew the truth. They were bound together by the secret of the demon. Part 3, Class 1A. The door to Class 1A was enormous. Izuku stood before it, his heart hammering against his ribs. This is it. The hero course. He opened the door. Get your feet off the desk. Ha! Who are you to tell me what to do, Four Eyes? The classroom was already chaotic. Tenya Ida, the bespectacled boy from the exam, was scolding Bakugo. Bakugo was ignoring him. Izuku tried to sneak in. Oh! It's you! Ida spun around, marching toward Izuku like a robot. Midoriya! I must apologize. I misjudged you at the entrance exam. You perceived the true nature of the test while I was blinded by the surface-level objectives. Ida grabbed Izuku's hand to shake it. Contact. Engine. High-octane fuel. Torque. Speed. The quirk felt like a revving motorcycle engine vibrating in Izuku's palm. It was powerful. It was tempting. Izuku yanked his hand away as if he had been burned. Ida blinked, confused. Midoriya? Sorry. Izuku gasped, clutching his gloved hand. I have a thing about germs. Sorry. Hygiene is important. Ida nodded vigorously. I am Tenya Ida from Semi-Private Academy. I'm Izuku. Hey! It's the falling boy. Ochako Uraraka appeared behind him, beaming. You got in. I knew you would. That punch was amazing. How is your arm? Fine, Izuku said, taking a step back to maintain a safe distance. Recovery girl fixed it. I was so worried. You just passed out. And everyone around you got dizzy. It was weird, right? Izuku flinched. Yeah. Weird. He hurried to his seat, the one behind Bakugo. He sat down, pulled out his notebook, and tried to become invisible. The classroom was a buffet. Todoroki sat in the back corner. Izuku could feel the dual nature of his quirk from across the room, the blistering heat and the biting cold. It was a chaotic storm of energy that made the hunger drool. Momo Yaoyorozu. Her quirk felt like a library, infinite possibilities, complex structures. Tokoemi. Dark Shadow felt alive. It felt like the vestiges inside Izuku. Too much, Izuku thought, burying his head in his arms. It's too loud. The door slid open. If you're here to make friends, pack up and leave. The class froze. A man in a yellow sleeping bag lay on the floor. He sipped a juice pouch, then unzipped the bag and stood up. He looked like a hobo, but his eyes were sharp, scanning the room. I'm your homeroom teacher, show you to Aizawa. The class gasped. Teacher? Aizawa reached into his sleeping bag and pulled out a stack of blue gym uniforms. Put these on and meet me on the grounds. We're doing a quirk apprehension test. A test? Uraraka asked. What about the ceremony? The guidance counselor? Aizawa turned. His eyes landed on Izuku. If you want to be a hero, you don't have time for leisurely ceremonies. UA is known for its freestyle traditions. That applies to the teachers as well. He smirked, but it wasn't a nice smile. The real world is unfair. Villains, disasters, discrimination. Heroes are the ones who overturn those situations. If you think you can just breeze through high school, you're wrong. He tossed the uniforms onto the podium. Plus ultra. Now get moving. Part 4. The locker room. The boys' locker room was noisy. Man, that teacher looks intense. Kirishima, the redhead with the spiky hair, said as he pulled off his shirt. I like it. Very manly. I heard he expelled an entire class last year. A blonde boy with a sparkle laser, Aoyama said. Trace terrifying. Izuku went to the furthest corner. He turned his back to the others. He took off his blazer. He unbuttoned his shirt. Whoa, Midoriya! Kirishima called out. You're ripped, dude. Izuku froze. He was shirtless. His body was a map of his training. Scars from the beach cleanup, burns from the entrance exam, and the natural, dense musculature of the AFO mutation. He looked like a middleweight fighter, but what drew the eye were the veins. Faint, dark lines traced up his arms and converged on his chest, right over his heart. They looked like spiderwebs or cracked porcelain. It was the physical manifestation of the stress his body was under holding two infinite quirks. You do some hardcore training? Ojiro asked, wrapping his tail around his waist. Something like that, Izuku mumbled. He quickly pulled on the blue gym tracksuit. He kept his gloves on. Why the gloves? Mineta asked, pointing. You gonna lift weights? My quirk, Izuku said shortly. It's volatile. I need the insulation. Bakugo slammed his locker shut. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Stop asking questions, Bakugo growled. Let's just get this over with. The boys fell silent, intimidated by the explosive blonde. Izuku shot Bakugo a grateful glance. Bakugo ignored it. Part 5. The test begins. The P grounds were bathed in sunlight. The class lined up. Aizawa stood with a tablet. Bakugo. You finished first in the entrance exam. What was your softball throw in middle school? 67 meters. Try it with your quirk. Bakugo stepped into the circle. He stretched his arms. He glared at the ball. Die! Boom! A massive explosion propelled the ball into the stratosphere. 705.2 meters, Aizawa read from his device. The class cheered. Awesome! We can use our quirks? This is gonna be fun. Aizawa's expression darkened. Fun? You have 3 years to become a hero. You think it's going to be fun? He looked at the class with cold, dead eyes. Right. Let's make this interesting. The student who ranks last in total score will be judged to have no potential, and will be expelled. Expelled? Uraraka cried. But it's the first day. That's too unreasonable. Natural disasters are unreasonable, Aizawa countered. Villains are unreasonable. Heroes correct the unreasonable. He looked directly at Izuku. If you can't handle the pressure, go home. Izuku swallowed hard. He knew Aizawa wasn't bluffing. And he knew that gaze was specifically for him. He knows. He knows I'm dangerous. He wants a reason to get rid of me. Test 1, 50-meter dash. Izuku lined up against Ida. Ida revved his engines. I will not go easy on you, Midoriya. Readied. Go! Ida blasted off. Engine boost. Izuku didn't use full cowl. He didn't summon the green lightning. He simply kicked the ground. Crack. The earth under his foot splintered. He launched forward like a bullet, relying solely on the passive strength stockpile that permeated his muscles. Ida crossed the line. 3.04 seconds. Izuku crossed the line. 3.10 seconds. Whoa! Kaminari gasped. He almost beat the engine guy with just running? Is his quirk super speed? Zero asked. No, Bakugo muttered. It's just brute force. Test 2, grip strength. Izuku took the dynamometer. He squeezed. He felt the metal casing start to buckle. He panicked. If he crushed it, he'd failed the control aspect. He stopped squeezing. 56 kilograms. Huh! Izuku stared at the number. He had held back too much. Next to him, Shoji gripped his device. 540 kilograms. Wow! Izuku bit his lip. Regulate. Don't break it. But don't be weak. Test 3, standing long jump. Izuku cleared the sandbox easily. He jumped, and for a second, he felt the air pressure shift under his feet, a nascent air walk quirk that the first user had hinted was dormant in the stockpile. He suppressed it. He landed with a heavy thud. Test 4, repeated side steps. Mineta dominated this with his balls. Izuku used his speed, blurring side to side, creating a wind that blew Mineta's hair back. Test 5, the ball throw. This was it. Uraraka went first. Infinity. The class lost their minds. Midoriya, Aizawa called. Izuku walked to the circle. His heart was pounding. He held the ball. He looked at the field. He looked at the sky. If I use 100%, I break my arm again. Aizawa will expel me for self-harm. If I use nothing, I get a generic score. Aizawa will expel me for lack of potential. I have to control it. He closed his eyes. He entered the vault. The fire of One for All was roaring. The hunger was pacing in its cage. Just a finger, Izuku told himself. Like All Might said. Focus the output to a single point. He wound up his arm. He felt the power surge. Green lines traced his skin under the tracksuit. Smash! He threw. But the moment the ball left his fingertips, nothing happened. The ball flew a pathetic 46 meters. Izuku blinked. What? He felt empty. The fire in the vault was gone. The green lightning was gone. But more shockingly, the hunger was gone. The constant white noise in his head? Silence. The itching desire to steal quirks? Gone. The voices of the vestiges? Muted. Izuku stood there stunned. For the first time in 11 years, he felt normal. He felt like a quirkless boy. It was peaceful. I erased your quirk. Izuku turned. Aizawa stood there, his hair floating, his scarf floating, his eyes glowing red. That entrance exam, Aizawa said, his voice dripping with disdain. You broke your body. And you drained the students around you. You are a liability. Aizawa walked closer. From what I can see, you can't control your quirk. You have two settings, 0 and 100. And when you hit 100, you become a black hole for energy.